Booktube, it's Eleanor here, and today I'm going to do a tag. The lovely Olive from Book Olive has just put out a non-fiction tag talking about our non-fiction taste. She was saying in the video that she made that she finds it a struggle because often there's loads of people on Booktube that read non-fiction, but we don't shout about it so much, and this is just a chance to let people know that we read non-fiction, that non-fiction readers are out there, and you know, our tastes, and giving people some recommendations and some ideas. So the first question on this is, how much non-fiction do you read? Well, I think for me that fluctuates and changes. So this month I'm predominantly reading only non-fiction, but generally I would say maybe one book a month out of often maybe 20 I read is non-fiction, and that really should be more, because I think percentage wise the amount of 5 stars I give to non-fiction is way higher than the percentage that I give to regular fiction. And I think that might be because I've sort of honed in on the type of non-fiction I want and the type of thing I'm looking for. And so the subject matter of the book is always there. I mean, that's what we find out on the blurb. So it's not like you're going into it with a blurb that's a bit mysterious and then you come out of it going, well, that wasn't what I was expecting. Normally you go into a non-fiction knowing what you're hoping to learn, and you come out of it having learnt that. And then it's just learning your tastes in terms of writing style and format. You know, how wordy do you like it? How scientifically heavy, if that's what you're in for? You know, what type of writing do you look for? Do you want it to be straight and to the point and blunt? Do you want lots of pictures? I mean, those sort of things are things that you can sort of hone over time, but for sure I know going into non-fiction that the subject matter is going to be something I'm at least interested in, which you know, stands it a better chance in the long run. The next question is, what sort of non-fiction videos do you make? Well, on a general basis, I think because a lot of my non-fiction books are ending, well, some of them, the higher percentage of them end up being 5 stars. I do often make a review video specifically for that book. I also do non-fiction recommendations. I've done quite a few recently to sort of tie in with Non-Fiction November. But if I'm honest, they would just go into my usual wrap-ups and reviews. But also, Non-Fiction November has been amazing for me because it really does give me the push to make these sort of videos, to make videos on non-fiction books, which is maybe something that I don't think to do otherwise. The next question is your favourite subgenre of non-fiction. I would say I have 2 main subgenres. One is true crime and things to do with murder and death. I know, a bit morbid. And the other one is to do with nature and animals, specifically animals over plant life, and more specifically, if we're homing in a little bit on that, things like bees and sea life. Yeah, and those are probably my main areas of interest. I'm just going to look at my shelf. I've also got quite a few books on there about memoirs, people who have escaped from oppression, people that have escaped from Korea, North Korea, and yeah, but most of it is either about the body. Yeah, I do have a bit of body in there, you know, like Gulp and Being Mortal, The Prison Doctor, cannibalism. But I would say my majority books are to do with sort of murder and death and forensic science, and inmates and things like that, and animals, and specifically sort of bees and sea life. The next question is your favourite non-fiction book. That is a real tough one, and I'm looking over here at my 5-star shelf. I mean, there's quite a lot of non-fiction that I've really enjoyed, and quite a lot of 5-star non-fiction on my shelf. I think what I'm going to say to you is a bit of a cop-out. I haven't got like a main, oh, this is my favourite non-fiction, but if you want to know more about non-fiction that I've enjoyed, I've made 2 or 3 recommendation videos recently in the last few weeks that have gone up for Non-Fiction November. There's one for graphic novels, one for memoirs, and one for, what is the other one for? I can't remember. but there has been a few that have gone up, and those ones have got my favourite ones on there, so you can check them out if you want to know more. The next question is, what do you think keeps people from reading more non-fiction? And I think, you know, I say this time and time again when I pick up a non-fiction and it's 5 stars. I think people are often intimidated. They think it's going to take more brain power. They think it's going to take longer to read. You know, especially if you're a booktuber or a blogger or something like that, often I feel like there's that pressure to get through the books so that you can talk about things and you can review things, and I think sometimes that puts people off. I think a lot of us do our reading if we're full-time, you know, in work or full-time at school. A lot of our reading takes place in the evenings, and we're worried that our brain power is not going to last and we're going to be too tired to read non-fiction and take in all that information. A lot of people, if you are still at school or university, are taking that information in during school, that all that non-fiction and learning, and maybe you just want a bit of escapism, so maybe that's why people don't pick it up so often. And you know, there's always this intimidation factor for me that I'm not going to understand it, I'm not going to be clever enough, and that's something I'm working on and trying to sort of push out of my mind, because often the books I pick for myself, I can read and I can understand. So yeah, so I think maybe people are just put off for those reasons. The next question is, why do I like non-fiction? I think I like non-fiction because, well, often with the non-fiction I pick, the nature side of it, I am just fascinated by these creatures that often I may be a bit nervous or scared of, who just play these such vital and important roles in our life and our ecosystem. And I just find it fascinating to find out more about them. Perhaps because of my nerves, like with bees, I'm extremely nervous of bees for no reason whatsoever. I've never been stung, but I'm really nervous of them. And so, you know, I've lumped them in maybe with the wasp category, and so the closest I'm going to get is through the pages of these books, which I think is amazing. And I think, you know, this fascination with forensic science and serial killers and things like that is that, you know, luckily I live in a relatively safe place. I don't think, you know, my life's not been touched by those things, and so they seem almost fiction to me. And so I find it fascinating, the things that people do with their life and the things that people do and how they catch people, and the things that people get away with, and how all these sort of systems, legal systems, forensic systems work. I just find it really interesting. The next one is a non-fiction you read because of Booktube. Hold on and I'll go and get it. Now this is going to be a bit of a strange answer, but I'm going to say The Blue Door by Lise Christensen. Now this is a bit of a roundabout way of how Booktube made me pick up this book. I decided before I went back to full-time work that I was going to try my hand at doing a bit of a book box, but I wanted it quite low-key, and what I wanted to do was provide a book, a surprise book, and then send off some goodies with it. But also throughout the book I would put post-it notes and talking about my thoughts as I was reading it. So again, that idea of reading it with someone, as you got to those pages you would find out my thoughts, or something that I might have looked at while I was reading that, or had it led me to look into something else. And so because of that, one month I went to the place that I got the books, and this was one that stood out at me. It says on the front, a little girl's incredible story of survival in the Japanese POW camps of Java. And this book really changed my idea of non-fiction. I just found it incredibly readable, extremely sad and moving, and heartfelt, and written from such a young perspective. You know, she was quite young when these things happened, and following her story was just heartbreaking, really. And this really was a book that I wouldn't have picked up had I not started Booktube, had I not thought that maybe people were interested maybe in my thoughts, and started this sort of book box. So I think this is one, and it's definitely one that I still try and push on people now, so go and get it. So the next question is the best non-fiction book you've read recently, and I'm going to let you into a little early secret. I'm just about to finish How to Be a Good Creature by Cy Montgomery, and as you can see, this is just the cover because the book is over there ready to be finished. And I am loving this. Cy Montgomery wrote a book that I also loved called Soul of an Octopus, and I saw this book actually on Olive's channel, so it could fit the prompt from before, and she was talking about how this book had come out, how it was Cy Montgomery's sort of memoir really on what got her into animals and writing about animals through the eyes, I think it's of 13 we're going to end up. Is it 13 animals? Yeah, a memoir in 13 animals. And so we're talking about the animals that have touched her life and what those have led to in either her career or her emotional life, or shaped her as a human being. And so far this is absolutely brilliant. She just writes beautifully, she writes in a great way. She sort of draws you in. It's like she's talking to a friend, and she just has some wonderful experiences, and I'm super jealous of some of the things that she's done and some of the animals that she's met and bonded with. So I'm really loving this, and I think it's well on its way to being 5 stars, at least 4, but maybe 5. So this is probably one of the best ones that I've read, and it's really recent, so that's sort of super recent. So the next one is non-fiction reading goals. Well, I think this month is quite clear that I shall be reading as much as I can, but I think next year I'm going to start prioritising non-fiction more, and what I want to do is to start trying to get at least 1 non-fiction book on my TBR, if not 2 for each month, and maybe always have a non-fiction book on the go, because I've still got loads that I haven't read and that I would really like to get to. So I think next year I'm going to try and really prioritise non-fiction in my reading all year long. The next question is about incorporating and advising incorporating non-fiction more into your reading, and I really liked actually what Olive said to about this. She said about if you were reading a historical fictional book set in a particular time period, maybe you could read a non-fiction book about that time period or about the person in history you're reading about, or perhaps if you're reading a thriller that's got a serial killer, perhaps you could read a non-fiction that talks about serial killers, and I just think that's a really lovely idea. So I definitely think that that is a great way to get more into it. I also think, like, think about the things that you really enjoy. Think about the things that you would like to know more about. You know, I really want to know more about forensic science. I really want to know more about certain animals, and so I hone in on those specific animals or those specific authors that I have found. You know, if you read a book by an author and you love that author's writing for non-fiction, then read more from that author, because their writing is going to be sort of something you're interested in, and as long as the subject matter is too, you know, you're pretty much onto a winner. And the final question is to recommend some non-fiction booktubers. So I can see my battery light going. Definitely Olive, obviously. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start putting up photos of people here with their channel, so you can see an array of other people who I will also link their channels down below, because I'm going to scroll through my subscribe, because I watch so many people. I'm going to scroll through and think of the people that I know talk about non-fiction as well as fiction, because I don't think I follow anyone that just talks about non-fiction, but I do talk about a lot of different people and watch a lot of different people that have eclectic taste, which is similar to me. So I will now shoot some faces and some names of channels, and I will link them also down below. Thank you so much for watching, and go read some non-fiction. I'm going to go back to this one, and I look forward to letting you know how I get on with it soon. Bye for now, Booktube.